Hey everyone, and welcome to week 14. This lecture series is for April 20th, 2020, and this is also the last couple of video lectures that I have planned for the rest of the semester. Ideally, I want you guys to be working on Project 4 for these last couple of weeks because it is a very big project, and I want to just make sure you guys have plenty of time to do that. So here's what I have for today's agenda. I do have a couple of general housekeeping announcements. I also want to go over an overview of weeks 14 through 16, and then we will be finishing up our lecture on multimodal writing. So if you remember last week, we went over a couple of different projects, and we're just going to be finishing that up today. All right. Patiently waiting for the slide to advance. There we go. So here is what I have planned for the rest of our time together. So we are on week 14 right here. April 20th, we're covering Writing in Multiple Modes Part 2. The next lecture, the next video lecture I will be doing, we will be covering Writing and Rhetoric in the Workplace. I did not put together a lecture for making presentations, but I still want you to review that portion of your textbook just because it's useful information to have, and it will prepare you for other classes where you might need to do some kind of public speaking element. Obviously, because we are now completely online, we no longer have required presentations for this course. I didn't want to do I didn't want to make you guys basically record yourselves talking and sending it to me. It's just too much hassle, all right? So we're not doing presentations this semester, but I still want you guys to familiarize yourself with best practices. Week 15 should be completely dedicated to Project 4, all right? So all of those days are drafting days. And then finally, the final draft of Project 4 will be due on May 4th, so that's week 16. Just a quick note, the last day I will be accepting makeup work is Wednesday, May 13th by 11:59 p.m. I'll be getting final grades posted to My Nevada by the 15th, and I believe that's a Friday, okay? So I do know that a few people have requested extensions, especially since this move to an online format, and that's fine, and I'm willing to be flexible, but I can't be receiving all this makeup work so close to the final deadline, okay? So my final cutoff date is May 13th for any kind of work, all right? And then final grades will be posted on the 15th. And I'll be sending out an email, I think. When did I have that email planned? Next week. So not this week, but next week. I'll be sending out an email just with all my different due dates, general housekeeping stuff to keep in mind as we finish off this semester. Okay. All right, so last week we discussed multimodal writing. And just as a reminder, if a text is multimodal, that means it utilizes two or more different modes. And these modes, there are 5, and they can be linguistic, visual, audio, gestural, or spatial. So 5 different modes. Linguistic is, your words, okay? Visual can be images, video, audio, sound effects, music, gestural, the movements that we make it can also be facial expression. And then of course, spatial is the layout of a page or a document or a physical space. Okay, we've also already discussed 3 different kinds of multimodal projects, so illustrated essays, blogs, and wikis. Today, I will just be doing a brief overview of audio essays, video essays, and posters. And I do want to emphasize that these are brief introductions. Some of these projects, the more complex you get, um, the more information that you need, okay? So again, this should serve as an overview, and your textbook does provide a pretty general overview. If you're interested in these kinds of projects, particularly anything having to do with video or audio, I do highly suggest you research and look at lots of examples to see what people are doing, all right? Posters, not so much, and we'll get into that more. Let's wait the obligatory 5 seconds here. Okay, so audio essays, the best example I can come up with for audio essays, and unfortunately I'm not a very big podcast listener. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but a podcast does serve as a sort of audio essay, okay? And it can be spoken text, it can be audio interviews, music, environmental sounds, sound effects, a combination of all of that. And the example that your textbook uses is David, and oh my gosh, I am probably going to mispronounce his last name. I think it's Sedaris. He has a very funny audio account of his time spent working as a department store elf. Very funny, very clever. If you want to listen to it, it can be found at everyone'sanauthor.tumblr.com. That is our textbooks website. And if you do choose to listen to this, and this is pretty common with a lot of podcasts, there's usually intro and outro music. The speakers usually modulate or adjust their tone, or how quietly they're speaking at some points, or how loudly they speak to emphasize certain points. The piece is also broken into 45 to 50-second segments, all right? So there's a lot of thought and work that is put into these kind of audio essays. It's not always just somebody speaking in a monotone voice, just reading off a screen, right? Kind of what I'm doing here with my PowerPoints, right? There's often music or sound effects, depending on what kind of software people are using, that sort of thing. So if you are a person who listens to a lot of podcasts, do think about it and think about how they are put together, okay? How are they structured? What kind of music do they use? Do they use sound effects? How do the speakers keep you engaged, right? Do they change their tone of voice? Do they vary the way they speak, right? Really pay attention to that. Okay. Oops. Okay. So again, I don't have a lot of experience in making audio essays. I think the best I'm doing right now is I'm using QuickTime, right? And I'm recording my voice over PowerPoint slides, right? But there are a couple of popular software that people who do create podcasts, what they use, so Audacity and GarageBand. If you do decide to create any kind of audio essay, it's important that you utilize a script, okay? And that you're also paying careful attention to your tone of voice, as well as the volume of your voice. If you use sources in your audio essay, introduce them at the beginning of the sentence, all right? And also utilize paraphrasing and summary rather than reading an entire direct quote. You also want to watch your pacing, and most commonly people will break up their audio into 45 to 50 second chunks or segments. And of course, if you use music and sound effects, that can also establish a certain setting or mood. So you want to be careful there, and consider the rhetorical situation. So who are you speaking for, right? Who are you creating this for? And kind of base your decisions, your production decisions off of that. And then finally, in a lot of these podcasts, we're using conversational everyday language. Okay, it's like a conversation. You're speaking to a friend. So do keep that in mind if you decide to create these. Okay, video essays. This can also encompass a wide range of projects that combine images, sounds, and words. So for images, we've got still images, photographs, or PowerPoint slides. This is a perfect example of what I'm doing right now, okay? I'm not recording my face, right? I'm not standing in front of a camera and lecturing. I'm just providing PowerPoint slides and I'm talking over them. Moving images, so someone standing in front of the camera, or stop motion. And then sounds, this is very similar to those audio essays, so music, a person speaking, voiceovers, sound effects, and then of course words. And these can be spoken or through subtitles or through literally words on a PowerPoint screen. It'll turn soon. Okay, so if you're making a video essay, there are a few software options. So you've got iMovie, Final Cut Pro. I don't think that's free. I actually think that's a pretty pricey piece of software. If you're just creating something for a class, I don't think you want to purchase something like that. You've got Windows Movie Maker, QuickTime, which is what I use. When you're also making a video, you do want to create a storyboard as well as a script. You don't really want to go into these blind, right? You want to create something that is cohesive and that makes sense. You also want to consider lighting, camera movement, angles, and color, and then of course include credits at the end, right? So credit your sources, credit if you use a video editor, right? Or if you use somebody to edit your videos for you, you always want to credit them at the end. Also, you need to consider the fact that if you are creating a video essay, right, you're making some kind of argument, okay? And that's for most essays, right? You're arguing for something. So in your video, how are you making a clear case for your argument? Through images, sound, and words. And this is going back to our rhetorical situation, okay? Consider your audience, context, purpose, and how are all of these elements working together to get your point across. That's important because you don't really want to slap something together, especially if this is for academic purposes, right? If you're making something more creative or artsy, go ahead, go crazy. But in an academic setting, if you're making a more academic style video, you do want to keep these things in mind. Can't even remember how many slides I made this time. Okay, posters, that's right. So this is another popular multimodal project, and I've seen a lot of posters, and this can actually include infographics as well. Usually when we think of poster, we think of those giant posters that we made in elementary school, right? But it can also be something smaller, and it can encompass a lot of different visuals. And posters can be used for a wide range of purposes. So you can use it for in-class presentations, academic conferences, political campaigns, and more. So when you're creating a poster, and I keep referencing Canva, I think I referenced that last week. Canva is excellent, and they have really great templates for you to use that utilize some of these best design practices. All right. So you always want to keep your design clean and simple. You don't want to try and cram as much text as possible. So again, follow best practices for font, layout, and colors. Is the poster eye-catching? You want to ask yourself that. Will it grab your intended audience's attention? If you're creating a poster for a class assignment or academic conference, you also want to make sure that you're double checking size requirements. So I know in particular for more scientific posters, if you're participating in some kind of academic poster presentation, there are often requirements there that you want to make sure that you're following. Okay, like I said, this was going to be a very short lecture. I just wanted to finish up our discussion of multimodal projects, give you some more ideas for things that you could possibly do. Do make sure that you're keeping up with the textbook readings. I've also posted some supplemental articles to our course page. Keep working on project 4, definitely. And I believe that's all I have. I will see you guys in the next lecture.